Welcome to Life
on
Life's
Terms
with your host, Justin
and Chelsey.
Today's topics, we're going to talk about Bob Lazar, spaceships, conspiracies, and the Matrix. So, coming to you out of Edmonton, this is the topic today. I did that on purpose. I was trying to sound like a robot.
Like on the Matrix.
Guess so. We could say that. So how was your weekend?
Well, it entailed a lot of just me being busy taking care of my sick daughter and watching movies like The Matrix.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch all of them?
No, I only watched the first one. And just because of the way my weekend was going, it took me about 3 tries to get through the whole movie. And I wasn't the biggest fan.
I could see that. I mean,
what I took out of it is so really super intelligent machines took over humans, were using them for energy, and all the humans are actually living in a virtual reality. Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's stupid, in my opinion.
Okay, so Kenny was reading a book called The Matrix something or another.
The Divine Matrix,
Yeah,
I think?
The
Yes.
Divine Matrix. So I'll get into dark matter.
Okay.
So dark matter, when we really look at what dark matter is, it's an implosion of time. Is what we figure that is in physics. Mm-hmm. Okay. So an implosion of time means that we can't go past it. So it's almost like a borderline. It's a wall.
Okay.
We can't go past. We can't go past because we don't know where it goes. And every time we try to go past it, we basically bounce back.
Yeah.
Because it's an implosion of time. Time is literally like it's an explosion upon itself. That's what implosion means. Mm-hmm. So like if you were to internally bust, you would go out from the inside out back to the inside. That's what's happening on an implosion.
Yeah.
So you're being exploded and then being recreated, exploded and recreated again and again and again and again and again. And we know for sure that dark matter happens even here on Earth. That happens. So when we talk about, is this a virtual reality? Well, what's behind the dark matter? Because the dark matter is like the same thing in space, and I'm speaking very, very layman here. It's like a mirror. It's like smoke and mirrors. You can't see past it. Mm-hmm. You don't know what the fuck is past it, but there's got to be something past it. I mean, it's fucking time. That's also the same thing as like a black hole.
Right.
That it expels dark matter out.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and it pulls it through gravitational pull. So are those the boundaries of our universe with something looking at us? Or is it just simply the end of the universe? Because we know the universe as infinity. It never ends.
Right.
However, we come up to these border walls. So how does that happen? So the idea behind it is that we are living in a matrix. That's the idea behind it. And a lot of people who believe in that theory of the matrix use this dark matter, real physics, to back that up.
So if we are living in the Matrix right now, then that would mean that I am not actually here right now. Because isn't that what it is in the Matrix? Your body is somewhere else?
Well, or you live in dimensions. So we know that for sure dark matter is connected to dimensions because of the way that its Y and X axis works. Mm-hmm. So it's like a corner. Sometimes it's like a flat line, and sometimes it works like a corner. So is this technology that we don't know about, don't understand how it works? Obviously, we don't understand how it works.
Maybe that's why I think it's stupid, because it's too hard for me to wrap my head around.
But that is the piece of quantum physics, right? If there's any movie I would highly recommend, it's Interstellar. And the reason why I would recommend Interstellar is, so you know who Tom DeLonge is?
Yes.
Right. So he was on Joe Rogan's podcast a long time ago with the Academy of the Stars, is what it's called. And he's a UFO nut. And if you look at the people who are on the board of Academy to the Stars, it's a bunch of people who are like NASA bigwigs, ex-U.S. Air Force people, people who were definitely involved in UFOs and aliens.
Right.
Okay. Now, basically what Tom DeLonge was saying in that podcast was what Academy of the Stars is trying to do is give you information through a fictional way. Because if you were to actually know what is happening and what's going on, you would be very, very afraid.
Yeah.
Is what he's getting at.
Yeah.
So it's better for them to present it to you in a way that is palatable.
Yeah, makes sense.
You can accept it.
Yeah.
So now if we look at Interstellar, Interstellar beautifully showed you quantum physics with astrophysiology. They took a movie and they were able to show you the implosion of time in that movie in a very theatrical way for like I'm not doing justice in trying to explain to you dark matter. And the reason why I'm not is because I'm trying to oversimplify it.
Okay.
To a degree that's palatable, to try to wrap your mind around the idea of it being basically a border. And we don't know what the other side is. Okay. Interstellar will kind of show you what time looks like in the context of purgatory. So basically this implosion of time would be what the creator of that movie related to as almost like a purgatory, not going anywhere. You're stuck in time.
Yeah.
And there's no this or no that. You're not dead. You're not young. You're not old. You are just what you are. And time around you is still going on.
Yeah.
Before you and after you. That's basically the implosion of time.
So do you believe the Matrix?
I don't know. What I do know is I understand the science behind what they're trying to say.
Right.
But the people who are along the line of the Matrix, a lot of them don't understand the fundamentals of physics. This was my biggest problem throughout this entire month for this wrap up is people trying to play in the high school schoolyard when they haven't learned the elementary stuff yet. And then they decided to jump right away into the theological world of university. And they have very little high school even, and I'm using that not in a exacting way. I'm using that in a way that we can see that in a picture.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's
Put
hard.
it into perspective.
So like you and I talking about dark matter, I'm trying to paint you a picture of something that's palatable towards where you are.
But yeah, can you see the dumbfounded look on my face
Well,
trying to process it?
So we have to start at that place before, like we have to really talk about physics and the fundamental of gravity before we can really talk about things like a black hole.
Yeah, exactly.
And talk about what dark matter is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have to start with the fundamentals in order for there to be some sort of astute discernment about what it is. You can't just go off half-cocked, think of something, or read the Divine Matrix and be like, this has got to be right. Well, how the fuck do you know?
I still want to read it.
I mean, I'm pretty well versed when it comes to a lot of astrophysics, only because of GPS. So I was a part. That GPS that's on your phone, I was a part of creating that constellation of satellites in the sky.
That's really cool.
That's what we did in university. right? So when it comes to astrophysics and comms or radiology from satellites talking to Earth, we had to use the gravitational pull of Earth for that whole entire constellation to move. And there's more than one constellation in the sky. And when you think about what GPS is actually doing, it's calculating where you're going because it's actually moving before you. So it can predict where you're going.
Right.
And because it can predict where you're going, it does this in what's called a root measured square, or RMS, least squares adjustment, which is a 45-minute calc that you and I do for one solution. This thing is doing it. It has to perform at least 20 of them within a minute in order to figure out where you're going.
Crazy.
And as it's doing that, because the constellation's moving ahead of you in time, it knows where you're going. So if you think that we can come up with that, just that basic technology in the 70s, we've been using GPS. Think about where we really are today. So when I was a surveyor, early in my career, I saw the development of what was called static GPS to what's called RTK, real-time kinematic, which is basically what you have in your phone, to your phone working. Okay? RTK, when it first started, was like a backpack and a pole. And it had camcorder batteries. We used to put 5 car batteries for the base. Whole bunch of crazy shit. Like you literally walked into the bush with a chainsaw and a bunch of computers. Like that's what it was in those days. Now, those guys walk out there with a pole and a data collector, a little computer, CPU. Yeah. That's it, right? So like, I saw that entire development.
And that's in a pretty short amount of time, right? Like the development is very fast.
It was crazy how quick it came.
Yeah.
And when you look at like the GPS in the early days, because the U.S. military wouldn't allow us to get a fix. So we were always out by 4 meters.
Oh.
You could never get any better than 4 meters in like the late 90s because the U.S. military didn't want us using GPS. And it was actually the FCC that made it free and public to everybody because it was radiology. It was a radio that was being dispersed on the communication or the comms or the solution of what the least square adjustment was. So they couldn't, America wouldn't allow them. That's public access is how they saw that. And then the next satellites that went up were what we call R satellites. They were Russians. Russians couldn't afford them anymore, so they sold it to India. So India actually owns that constellation. And then the next constellation that went up, which I kind of worked on with the university, was Galileo, which is the EU constellation. So all of them work in conjunction with each other. So I started from a world where we would call satellites birds, where there was 5 birds and you needed a minimum of 4. We would look for 4. We couldn't do GPS without 4 birds, 4 satellites in the sky. Now, there's anywhere from 18 to 25 at any given time. There's no worry about not having enough satellite coverage in the moment, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you when 9/11 happened, all the birds were gone. They moved them.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very, very few for us to actually work with to utilize GPS. It was very, the times were strange. We could only use static GPS to tie out our surveys. We couldn't. I'm one of the last guys actually in Alberta to have a moonshot as a tie out, where I observed the moon twice in order to tie my singular position. That doesn't happen. Like people.
And that was because of.
There was nothing to tie to. Yeah, there was nothing to tie to, and there was no evidence. There was no evidence. So like we ended up tying to some kind of evidence that was really far away. But in order to get a singular tie in the specific place that it was in, we used 2 moon observations to verify exactly where we were. Right. So like that's where the knowledge comes from dark matter and what space is and how astrophysics actually works. So like that's where that comes from. So I started from physics and like like earlier years.
Yes.
And then went to school and learned a lot of this stuff and the basic, like the basic knowledge of what it is. I mean, I'm nowhere near the professors in the field, but I understand it. So when you ask me, do I believe in the Matrix? I mean, theologically it's real, but the people who are advocating for it really don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. The theory behind it is not really sound. It makes sense if you pull this and pull that. I mean, I can make a cabbit if I take a cat and a rabbit.
Yeah.
But it's not a fucking animal.
No.
You know what I mean? It's a mutant of some fucking thing. Right? So like that's what I call like this theory. You can take this and take that and make whatever you want. But it doesn't mean it's right. Like a cabbit is not right.
I think I would just rather not believe. Like I keep picturing the movie because I just watched it. I just keep picturing myself being one of those people laying there hooked up with that thing in the back of my head and not actually here right now in the studio. You know what I mean? That's really hard for me to wrap my head around.
Well, one of the things that is definitely happening for the near future to make that relative to you is VR, virtual reality.
Yeah.
That's already happening.
Yeah,
I mean, I just saw a guy who went 30 days.
But you're in control of going into that virtual reality. Well, like you choose to put that helmet on your head or whatever, for an example, right?
100%. But then what ends up happening when VR is connected to AI? Mm-hmm. And when is it that you can't disseminate what reality is anymore and what VR is?
Jeez, I don't know. The whole thing freaks me out.
Definitely, it gets pretty scary, right? Yeah. But here we are now venturing into a world. And so let's not go past space anymore. Let's just look at our environment. We're going into a world where, there's regulation for building cars. Now, you have to have a seatbelt in it. Mm-hmm. That's regulation of building cars.
Yeah.
There's no regulation when it comes to building a robot.
Yeah, which is scary.
There's no regulation in regards to building virtual reality.
Really?
Huh. None. And if you want to know who puts the most amount of money into VR, it's the American military, Marines. Why do you think the best thing was about Navy SEALs Ops? Remember on or any of those war games that you play on video platforms? You learn actual military tactics. Those are actual military tactics without ever having to go...
Like in Call of Duty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you actually learn those tactics. And you know how to employ or deploy serious military tactics.
Yeah.
As a group, as a team. Right? So why do you think that the military does that? It also allows you to become desensitized towards killing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And it also puts you into a place where the camaraderie of the brotherhood around you and the tribalism that's happening in the moment allows you to get past your moral obligations in the moment. That's what it's doing, right? So like when you see your military going off to war, why are they not murderers? Because they're fighting for your cause.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, and I'm a guy who like straight up believes, what the fuck's his name? Omar Khadr. He's a terrorist. He should never come back to Canada. I totally believe that. And to have him on the fucking CBC was totally disrespectful to all of the veterans. I mean, I had Brock Blazchuk on the show who was saying, why the fuck are we bringing... I mean, that's treason.
Yeah.
Straight up. You shoot against a Canadian or an allied soldier of Canada, that's fucking treason.
Yeah, it is.
And you shouldn't... You're not a Canadian. I mean, you are fighting for whatever theology that you're fighting for, or your ideology that you're fighting for. You're not, if you are going against the troops of that country, that's incorrect. But all I'm saying is in the VR world, That's why the military or the American military has put so much money into that. Mm-hmm. And it also makes a heroism out of American Marines or their Navy SEALs. They look like heroes. I'm not saying that they're not. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is it contributes towards that that kind of ideology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's hard to say that Americans aren't the moral authority when every, or almost damn near every video game, they are the hero.
Absolutely.
So it's like an indoctrination. And if it's an indoctrination, I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong. All I'm saying is that's the intent. And if that's the intent, well, what's VR really doing? It's indoctrinating you. And how long did you go living in, is it better living in that world than it is living in our world?
For some people, I'm sure it is.
And how quickly could you be swayed into it? Like that's the crazy thing. What happens if that's where you go to work now?
No.
But that's where we're going.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I mean, we're kind of already there. Every time we subscribe to video meetings, your Zoom rooms.
Oh, I do it every week.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what happened to that physical connection? See, this is why on the podcast, we try to have guests come in physically.
Yeah. Sit down with them. Yeah.
Because there's the feeling, right?
Yeah.
You don't get that when somebody calls in.
It's way different.
Or when somebody is Skyping in. So we're contributing with Zoom rooms towards a VR employment. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
We're contributing to all of it. You know, when we use our phones or we use Twitter or we use social media, we're propagating that whole entire dissemination of information by using those platforms. I mean, for us on the podcast, it's fundamental. We have to have it.
Yeah.
That's how we get this show out there. But it's
exactly. But there are many people who rely so much on just their social media and who are constantly in a virtual world, even just with video games, for example.
Well, you're already a cyborg.
Yeah.
Right now, if I ask you about something that you don't know, what are you going to do?
Google.
And how slow is that bandwidth from your thumbs to the phone to your brain? And your brain to your thumbs to your phone to your brain. It's fucking slow. Mm-hmm. So what happens if we put Google right in your head?
Yeah.
You're fast, right?
Yeah, really fast.
So now what we do is we say, okay, so you want $40,000 a year? Okay, so we're going to give you a loan. Don't worry about school. We're going to give you a loan of like $100,000 to pay off over 10 years to put this chip in your brain. And you're going to be qualified for $40,000 a year. And you just have to pay it back to us. So we're going to take 20% or whatever we're going to take over the next 10 years to have that paid off. And now you have a technocratically caste society. I mean, the caste society has been in India for years and still is. It's a very British way of looking at life. You're born to this is what you have.
Right, yeah.
Right? Whereas in America or even somewhat Canada, you have the opportunity to be like the American saying is families in America are always rising and falling. Mm-hmm. Well, why is that? Because it doesn't matter where you come from. You can always rise in the American society because of capitalism. But if you were to throw a caste system in there, well, your last name is Robert. You're not making over $45,000 a year. Mm-hmm. You're not making more than what your parents made. You're just going to be plugged into the same tax bracket that they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly what would happen with a technocratic caste society. You pay for the privilege of the chip that basically earns you income. So no more college, none of that. I mean, basically you and I can learn whatever we need to learn off YouTube. I mean, that's how I figured out this podcasting thing.
Yeah, you really can go on YouTube for pretty much anything.
Or Google it outside of YouTube. Mm-hmm. So what happens when the Matrix becomes Google within our society. Not even outside the confines of like space. Let's not go there. We're just talking within the confines of our society. You're plugged in all the time. When do you unplug? Like, when does that happen?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Rarely.
Yeah. It's scary, right? Like,
It
that's
is.
a very scary prospect. You know, and it's supernatural in its degree of that's what we created without even really recognizing, or maybe the people who created those things did know what they were doing. And the sheeple maybe just don't even know that they're a part of this whole entire Google thing, like this new created economy. Because I think that's where it's going. I think that's where Google is going next. And I think that all the things, like, have you been listening to Elon Musk lately? A lot of people are calling him a liar. And
No, I
he's the
haven't.
Tesla guy, right? He also created PayPal and shit.
Okay, yeah.
So he's calling for an oversight committee. But he's like, they're not going to have an oversight committee till, like he compared it to all these people dying and then realizing that you needed to have an oversight committee to build cars. So you have seatbelts in them, right? Having a regulatory body that says you're allowed to do this, but not that. Mm-hmm. And I almost compare it to psychiatry. There's a group of psychologists that make ethics boards so that people aren't like doing what they did at McGill in Montreal. You know,
Which is what?
they were comatosing people and then giving them electrolysis over 10 years without the person ever getting out of a bed.
What?
And some of these people were kidnapped right off the street in Montreal and brought to this
When was
fucking
this?
hospital. So if you look it up, CBC reputable, so-called reputable media companies, mainstream media folks started talking about this, but it's a real deal. So the Canadian government has actually been paying out some of these supposedly mentally sick people that were never sick. They were kidnapped, brought to a hospital and tested over 10, 15 years. And I forget the guy's name who was the head of that school, but he was a Nazi. Mm. He came over in Operation Paperclip, and they gave him a school, and he was a psychiatrist.
Oh boy.
With a sociologist, and they basically
Kidnap people.
Yeah, and we're like,
So, and okay, the people they kidnapped were mentally ill, or they weren't?
they don't know because the people are so fucked up after. Like, if they didn't have a mental health issue, they
sure as hell
definitely
know.
do now, right? Like, yeah.
Oh, so they claim that they were already mentally ill?
Suppose maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Like, we don't know
Yeah, it's up
because
in
the
there.
families of these people, one didn't know where their family member went because they were missing, they were
Yeah.
kidnapped, and they were saying, well, this person wasn't ill when we saw them, and then when they came back to them, there's serious
Something seriously
emotional
wrong.
issue. Yeah, I mean, imagine being comatose for 4 years, not moving,
No.
and then performing electrolysis on your brain. You know what's going on, but you can't move. You're in a paralysis state. It's like sleeping, but not sleeping.
That's terrifying.
That's what they were doing to people, yeah. Here in Canada. Like, that's fucked.
That is so fucked.
That's so fucked up.
I feel like there's no coming back from that.
Well, then that's why we have ethics committees. So Elon Musk is saying we need an ethics committee when it comes to AI, all of this stuff.
Well, I agree.
Because it's moving way too fast.
Incredibly fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
It's mind-blowing.
We started off talking about GPS, and look at how quick that was
Yeah.
in the sphere of progression.
Yeah.
It's fucking nuts.
Very short amount of time with huge progress.
Yeah. Yeah. So you watched Bob Lazar.
I did, yeah.
What's your
I had to watch
thoughts?
it. Well, the thing that stuck out to me the most was how, because there's that scene where they go, I think, out into the woods.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. They go out and they are talking about something that is supposed to be a secret. They don't even I don't think they even tell you what they said. They like fast forward through it so you don't hear their conversation, right?
They did tell you afterwards.
Okay. Maybe I was half asleep. Who knows?
So I watched it 3 times or like 7 times over 2 days. Yeah. 7 times over 2 days. Yeah.
And then just what I'm getting at is there was that FBI raid the very next day. And
you hear him talking about, I mean, there's videos about this on YouTube anyways already. Talking about the sheer numbers that came into his lab.
like a crazy amount of people. And they were tearing apart everything. They were making little tiny cubic
square
areas,
meter. By square meter they were searching. So they were looking for element 115.
Yes, that element. Mm-hmm.
That's what they were looking for.
Ooh.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe the validity of his schooling?
I do.
Do you think he went to MIT and Caltech?
I do.
Yeah,
is that me being gullible? But there's articles, like newspaper articles, stating that he was there and whatnot. But there's no records of it, right? So obviously somebody just had those records taken away, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's
people trying to hide it.
He doesn't have a physical degree neither.
Oh, he doesn't.
Well, he lost them.
Or somebody took him.
And he was also part of a brothel.
Yes, yeah. I forgot about that, yeah.
I think he
got
kind of
arrested
went
for that, didn't he?
Well, I think the piece that they're missing is, so his wife cheated on him. So I think he kind of snapped a little bit. Mm-hmm. And he's a geek who made really good fucking money. Like when you're working at Los Alamos,
yes,
you're making good fucking money.
Well, and they said that he didn't work there, right?
But he's in the directory,
right? Yeah,
of there. And people who worked in Los Alamos
say that he worked there.
So when we start talking about, and then you saw the scanner thing. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
Do you know where that scanner thing? Yeah, you know where that scanner thing exists right now?
Where?
You could see it right now. Remand Center at the Edmonton Remand Center.
Oh, okay.
They have that right now. That's how you get into the building if you're security staff or addiction staff or whatever. That's the same scanner that they have. Yeah. So, and as they had said in that video or in that movie, everything that he said is now coming to fruition.
Yes, everything that they thought was so far-fetched and not true. For example, that scanner.
And he was adamant. He'd have to explain all of it, how it worked, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so here he is now, like, well, yeah, that's it. Like he's like,
he's like, I can't believe you just showed me that picture. Yeah. And I don't think he could really act that as surprised as he was. I agree.
That he's seen that. And then like you also have like when he was talking about when he drew out the spacecraft. You know, like he drew out the spacecraft and he showed you how much access he had. Mm-hmm. Right? And, you know, the famous line that he said, too, he goes, well, do you think that Los Alamos just hired me out of high school?
Yeah, exactly.
Like something had to have happened from high school to Los Alamos.
Yeah.
Like, and then when he was, like I said, when he was showing you that access, and he said, I don't know what happens up here, but I know what happens from the middle
down. Yeah.
And he's talking about the deception of time. And how it's basically, so we talked about dark matter. Well, that's what it's creating in front of the spaceship.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
It's a nice tie-in, right?
Yeah.
Because what does dark matter do? It creates, when it's bending time.
Yeah. Okay, see that, it makes more sense to me now.
When it's bending time, it's creating gravity. What has more force, being pulled or pushed?
Pushed.
Think so? You create
pulled.
You create
like
more force when you push, which means you work harder to push something than you do to pull something.
Yeah.
Okay. So what that spaceship is actually doing is it's creating a pull. Because it's bending time in front of it, which then in turn creates some sort of gravitational pull.
Yes.
And it's being pulled towards it. Mm-hmm. So if it's weightless, because it has its own gravity, and it can break our own gravity. Well, it's in our gravity's force field. Well, its maneuverability is we could not even touch that. Because basically what our plane is doing, or our jets are doing, it's like standing at a door and pushing through. That's what our planes are doing. It's not being pulled.
Right.
Our planes are being pushed. So it can only go on an axis of 90 or 80. Well, now imagine doing a 90 while dropping. You're dropping and doing a 90. None of our planes could do that.
No.
It's impossible unless it was diving down and trying to turn.
And then, not
it couldn't do
possible.
that. Yet this is why our own cameras have a difficult time potentially following alien spacecraft.
Right.
Because our cameras don't even know how to do that. I mean, there's some aircraft fighter pilot video where they were actually able to lock onto a UFO, which is pretty amazing. Like, meaning that they could have shot at it.
Oh, wow.
But that's once ever, and it's on YouTube. You could find that. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is Bob Lazar was able to tell people when to go into the desert and see test flights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, he knew the schedule.
Yeah.
So if he's right, if we go on the premise that he's right, that's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah, because that was a long time ago.
And like I said, GPS was what, in the 70s?
Yeah.
So what your phone can do right now, the military could do 79
Yeah.
for navigation. So where the fuck do you think they really are?
Right? Like, that's crazy.
Does it puts in perspective of how much you probably really don't know. And I think a glaring thing that Bob said that you came to a conclusion to in the last episode was there's so much information out there. Try to decipher the bullshit. Mm-hmm. That's how they inundate you. Right? And then you have like that guy, an alien, whatever the fuck it was, where he said aliens were coming to his house and stuff, and he had all these photos and all that shit. He was debunked. Like, I mean, guys like that, it's a fucking disservice to really try to, yeah,
absolutely.
And then the other thing that you have is people who really don't know what the fuck they're talking about a bunch of shit that come up with like fucking flat earth theory. What the fuck are you talking about? You're so crazy. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know that was still a thing. I didn't know there was still people who believed Earth was flat.
Well, and now there's like fake space. Space is fake. What in the fuck are you talking about? Like, what are you talking?
What is that movie where the guy lives in a dome?
Yeah.
So people think that's what's going on?
Yeah. It's
space is just a thing that is put on,
like, it's painted
on the roof of our dome.
Yeah.
Over Earth.
There's people are I think in a way they're trying to simulate that this is like the Truman movie.
Yeah, that's the movie I was thinking of.
That's what they're trying to say that this is. Or Ed TV or something, you know? And maybe it is. But what I do know is that it's at a proportional level that is intricate with intelligence. It's very, very intricate because, you hear Stephen Hawking. He wrote a book saying that you're basically fucking crazy not to believe that there's not an intelligent society that's even in our own world just like ours. Microcosms work like us. Like, you're crazy to believe that they don't. Microcosms work like you and I. Germs are just as vile as you and I are when it comes to a war.
Yeah, very true.
They work together in conjunction with each other with the same kind of intelligence and the same way of, playing the chessboard the way that you and I play a chessboard. Mm-hmm. Look at dolphins. I would suspect that they're actually far superior to us in thinking capacity. The only difference between us and them is they don't have the dexterity that we do, the fine motor skills that we do.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, we're crazy to believe that we're the only society that's like this. And if Bob Lazar is right, well, fuck, there's something else out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, we believe that there's a higher power of some sort, yet it's never really defined to us. I mean, one can look in religion and try to find that. One can look at, climate change, and that be your God, or science become your dogma. But we all have this wanting to believe in something. And I think this just perpetuates that. And I think we're too far behind, or maybe we're so ignorant, naive to our own intelligence that it's right in front of our face, but we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole entire Bob Lazar thing made me start going down the rabbit hole of lizards. You know, and like how lizards were really with the Nazis and all this fucking crazy shit. Like, you have no idea how crazy that wormhole gets.
No, I don't know if I want to go down that one.
Well, and it's crazy. Like, and you know what? Maybe it's real.
How did you feel after reading all that?
I didn't read it. I actually watched videos.
You watched
I
it?
didn't invest that much. And what I thought to myself was, it could be plausible. Is it? I mean, think of all the people that would entail
To keep it hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, look at how hard people are working to keep this stuff with Bob Lazar a big secret.
and that's the other thing.
Right?
I mean,
Takes a lot of work, but it seems like it's doable.
And if we go to the premise of what's a conspiracy is a plausible question. Well, that's a fucking plausible question.
Absolutely.
Especially when he says the sheer amount of people of FBI that were in his shop.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a lot.
And not just him. There's other people saying, like, the people that work with him.
Yeah.
They couldn't believe how many people showed up.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't an exaggeration.
No.
So, like, is it real? I mean, you would think, though. I mean, but at least with Bob Lazar, some of the validation that comes is like the hand scanner.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that they published Element 115. And they said, you cannot say what Element 115 would do if it was stabilized.
Yeah.
We've never had it stabilized.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, supposedly. And if that's the fuel for the spaceship that they have, well, maybe there's no more test flights because they ran out of gas.
Yeah. So they were thinking, I can't remember who asked Bob now, but they were wondering if he has the element, right? Weren't they looking for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said he wouldn't even talk about it.
Yeah, he wouldn't even answer.
Yeah, I'm not going there. I think a guy like Bob, though, I mean, you look at him and he is just a straight up geek. You know,
yeah.
when you see him. He actually reminds me of this guy who was kind of like a male role model figure in my life named Jim Garber. And so the reason why Jim Garber he was a geologist. And the reason why he was in geology was because he was actually an alchemist.
Okay.
And he believed in Element 115. And I remember him talking to me
Before
about
it ever
this
came out?
while Bob Lazar just came out.
Okay.
So you got to remember, Bob Lazar came out when you and I were children.
Yes.
And when I met Jim, it was 93, 94, and the internet was just kind of coming out when it was making sounds, you know?
Yeah, the dial-up.
Yeah. So I remember Jim talking to me about Element 115 then, saying that was his goal mission, was to find a pure form of Element 115 on the Earth, or something that was like you were able to turn into a stabilized form of 115 through alchemy. I thought that was like, even as a kid, I really couldn't wrap my head around that stuff. But I remember him talking about it, hoping that I would understand. He would tell me the most important things to ever learn in life is not religion. You need to learn things like alchemy, chemistry, and physics, because that's what's going to allow you to understand this compulsion of spirituality. And when you look at quantum physics, I mean, it makes sense when you understand it and how there's some sort of connection. And it just makes sense. So that's why I say watch the movie Interstellar.
Interstellar, yeah.
Because that's a very fundamental way of getting into that realm. So yeah, anyways, back to this element 115. I think it's so crazy that, I mean, let me ask you this. What would you do if there was 20 tons of gold in this room? Would you start demising in your head how to get it away from me? Or how to get it out of this room?
How to steal it? Well, it's probably heavy.
well, yeah, but you see,
yeah.
How much of it could you take?
Yeah, my wheels would just be turning. I don't know.
That's right. So now imagine if you found something like element 115, or you knew that somebody might have it. They might have it.
This mystery element.
You're willing to investigate.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if the government, so let's go on the premise that Bob is right. And so the government knows of 115 and they know what it can do. It's the gas of the fucking spaceship.
And let's just say that they did run out, like you said. Then, of course, they're going to use all their resources to try and find any little bit possible.
So when you go down that rabbit hole, and it was worth, I mean, at least Bob Lazar, it wasn't so crazy that you're like, no fucking way. Because it's not that.
No.
He's, like he said, he was going to weaponize your curiosity in the beginning of the movie, and that's exactly what he did. He did the guy who put the documentary together. It's exactly what he did, and I would assume that we've done the same thing on this podcast because we haven't given the whole show away.
No,
we haven't given the whole movie away, and I would guarantee. I mean, it made me look at dark matter in a whole new light. After watching that documentary, I looked at it and I was like, fucking hell. What if that's where element 115 is? And and then when you go and look at the periodic table for element 115, they can't tell you what it does. They say it's unstable.
How long has it been on the periodic table?
I can't remember when they published it. I think it was in the 2000s.
Okay.
So it's relatively new. Mm-hmm. But this is going to become something. So let's look at this too. If you want to innovate something, what do? You have to innovate it in a way for people to look at it and work on it. Because it's much better to have the world look at it than the select 1,000 that you have. Because they haven't done jack shit in 20 years. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
So how do you now disseminate that information? You don't do it in a way that is direct, like this is an alien fucking element.
You get people thinking about it.
And you don't tell them that it came from where it came from. Just like Bob said, right away we work on the premise of a lie.
Yes.
Now you look at what Tom DeLonge said. We're disseminating information through a fictional way. Well, why do they do that? Because it might be a little bit fucking mind-blowing to find out that it came from a bunch of aliens.
Right? The truth might be too much to handle.
And people start freaking the fuck out.
It's easier for some people to just say it's bullshit than accept the truth.
And then again...
Or what could be the truth.
To allow your intuition to guide you. Like I said, I want to believe. So therefore, I have to be a skeptic. Mm-hmm. I want to believe. My integrity means everything. And the only way how I'm able to maintain that integrity is if I'm able to debunk it. If I can debunk it, I'm not wasting my time in disseminating or propagating that information. Mm-hmm. I cannot debunk Bob Lazar.
Yeah, even the second time I was watching it, I had to tell myself.
You too, more than once.
Yeah. I only watched it twice. But even the second time, I was like, okay, Chels, remember, like, Miss Gullible over here, just, pay close attention.
Yeah.
And nothing to me seemed far-fetched. And it was easy. I don't know, it just seemed easy to believe to me. And it wasn't... A lot of it was just Bob's reactions and the way he told his story, and even how he was just like, why are we doing this again? Like, this has taken over my life. I don't want to even talk about this again. Like, here I am 30 years later being asked the same questions.
Yeah. Well, and when he got so defensive about his education.
Yes. Yeah.
And you know, George Knapp said it the best. You know, he had everything to gain when he was going to court about the brothel.
Yes.
To say, no,
that was his time.
None of this is real. Yeah. And he wouldn't back down from that.
No.
And like Bob said, I don't make any money off of this. And a fucking guy makes money off of like fireworks. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's the beauty about being a scientist, is you can make money doing a whole or earn income through whatever faucet you want. You know, and the Bob Lazar name doesn't sell because of spaceships. It sells because of his intelligence.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's a highly sophisticated person. If you've gone to fucking MIT and Caltech, son of a bitch, you have a brain. Mm-hmm. Those are the two best engineering schools in North American hemisphere ever. Yeah. You know, Queen's University is up there too in Kingston. And so is University of Alberta. Those are like some of the best schools to come out of, right? Yeah. But our schools are state schools. Caltech and MIT are fucking like those are Ivy League tech schools. Right. Those are the best of the best. You know, they accept students from everywhere. So the last thing that I like to get to, you and I talked about it, is very concerning a little bit. I just found this out last night and I didn't believe it, and then I went down the rabbit hole a little bit and it was fucking mind-blowing.
Prepare yourselves.
Planned Parenthood is selling baby fetuses.
Disgusting.
How fucking... I mean, I say that as a fact. I have to preface, I'm not sure. However, the videos that I saw would insinuate that Planned Parenthood is selling baby fetuses, would be an accurate statement.
Okay, can I ask, do you know what for? Or to who?
So...
Like, I'm just wondering, is this like for research, for do good
apparently
kind
it's
of stuff?
for research.
Okay.
Apparently it's for research. But my problem is so do you know who has the most sample of brains ever in the world?
No,
the Germans.
Okay.
And the Germans got it from the Holocaust. And they still have full brains.
From the Holocaust?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That are in vinegar, basically.
Right.
And they look at. Does that make it right? I mean, they have it. Okay. But does that make it right?
Well, no.
My morality says no, it's not right.
No.
Now, just because somebody's had an abortion, does it make it right that, I mean, and it's going to get pretty graphic, so I warn you. There was parts in that video that I saw where there was little baby arms.
Jesus.
That they were like picking through, looking for livers, so on and so forth. And some of these were of 24 weeks. Like they were babies of 24 weeks. So they're looking for brain, hearts, livers. It was very distressing.
Well, no kidding.
And it came from a source like Alex Jones. And I was pretty blown away. And he's like, just look it up. Just look up live auction organs. So I did.
Live auction organs.
Yeah. So there's a market for human organs. So I've known this about Chinese. So when I was in the black market, so to say, you could buy drugs or you could buy a human liver. Mm-hmm. And I definitely remember that the Chinese were the largest producers of that in that black market world.
Of livers?
Just human organs.
Yeah.
Actually, like full human organs. You could ask for whatever you wanted. And if you did it correctly, you could appropriate it to the correct doctor in order for your liver to be replaced.
Wow.
So it's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now all of a sudden, I mean, it's one thing to think that there's a human organ industry out there, but then
But
to
now
think
you throw in these.
abortions,
Yeah.
and that's a whole new world. And now in America, you have post-birth abortions, which is legal in a lot of states. So
these, I just got to ask these, oh my God, I don't even want to say it. These fetuses after the abortion that are being auctioned off, the women who had these abortions, are they aware of this, or is this done behind their back, or do we not know this part yet?
apparently not. They don't know.
They don't know.
Apparently. They're definitely not paid for it.
Oh my goodness.
There was so one of the videos that I saw was a woman who was representing Planned Parenthood, is what the video had said.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about price fixing on the auction of organs and wholesaling a certain clinic on all of the babies that were being pushed out.
Oh my goodness.
So she was talking about a volume of 60 fetuses a week and wanting $50,000 per fetus.
Oh my God.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm pretty grossed out.
Well, and it being, this supernatural conspiratorial month, like I had said prior to.
Well, this is not something that.
Well, there's
the
real
public-
conspiracy.
Yeah.
There's real conspiracy. You and I talked about the justice system.
Yeah.
I mean, the justice system just came out today or this weekend saying that 2,788 bail hearings are what's called holdovers, which means they didn't get bail in the first 24 hours. It's a constitutional right in Canada to get bail in 24 hours. Okay. And they've been holding over 2,700 and whatever it was. So you know what the number is of the remand to hold people?
Isn't it like 2,000?
Yeah, 2,000 inmates.
Yeah.
So there's 700 people apparently over the number of what the remand center can even hold. So why do you think that happens? How do you get a remand center paid for? Why is the fucking remand center the size of a small Canadian town here in Edmonton?
For all the overflow?
And all that number. Well, they're called holdovers.
Oh, okay, holdovers.
That's the terminology that they use. And in Calgary, it's like 200 holdovers because Spy Hill just can't hold that many inmates. And these are real conspiracies. I mean, the problem is the state media is unable to give you the real.
Yeah.
Because they're being paid by the government here in Canada anyways.
Yeah.
And then this whole thing with Planned Parenthood and the conspiracy of selling organs. It's pretty fucked up, man.
Very fucked up.
And it almost like, as a Catholic, I have a hard time accepting abortion.
Mm-hmm.
But it almost makes me become staunch about the whole entire abortion piece. Because if there's anything that that I know about business, is the relativity of income perpetuates business. And now all of a sudden you have post-birth abortion in America. And here in Canada, we have euthanasia.
Mm-hmm.
So older people are dying, and we decide to kill them before all of their organs go. Why are we really doing that? That's my question now. After seeing this whole entire thing about organ selling,
mm-hmm.
why are we really doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And a North American Canadian man or woman has pretty good health. For the most part, just because your kidneys go doesn't mean your liver goes.
Right.
Doesn't mean
your heart's
or your liver goes or your corneas go or your retinas go. So Why is it that we're killing them like this now? Why is it that there's a decision to do it this way?
Possibly could be for those organs.
Well, why would you create an industry? Like, the industry's created. And then all of a sudden, why would you make a law in order to accommodate that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was in a pretty intense conversation with somebody a little while ago about when do lawmakers stop making laws?
They don't.
That's right. When does a business stop creating products?
They don't.
That's right. How is it that more laws are created, yet society hasn't really changed that much aside from technology?
Yeah, there's just new laws to accommodate more businesses.
Or products for the place to sell.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the product? I mean, do you know that you can get a DUI being drunk on a bicycle driving?
I did know that, yeah.
So why is it that those bicycle lanes are on the street? Because they couldn't charge you with a DUI if you're on the sidewalk. They will.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just an overlook.
Yeah.
Really. But yeah, if you're on the street, you're a motorized vehicle, but not really.
No,
I mean, you're
really.
not a motorized vehicle to harm others. You might harm yourself.
Right.
But we have euthanasia.
Yeah.
So why is it if you want to commit suicide with heroin or jumping off a bridge any different than dying in the hospital because of cancer?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference?
None, really.
So that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
like that's the dark turn
Yeah.
that happens when there's real conspiracy out there. You know, you can talk about the Matrix all day long and how maybe we don't live in a real world.
Yeah.
But who got? What the fuck does that mean? That means absolutely nothing next to, potentially Planned Parenthood selling fetuses,
Yeah.
or your government now selling mature organs. Like that's far more, or Bob Lazar's,
Is he or isn't he hiding that element?
or the fact that alien technology exists. Those are almost established facts. So why not push those balls, or push those theories into light, and wait for this Matrix shit, which is so far gone. We haven't even really worked out all of the things that we think we know about space.
Yeah, exactly.
But so we're not even we're still living in the elementary fucking schoolyard, even with those who have like guys like Bob Lazar. You get him to talk about space, and he'll even say it. Like, he had a T-shirt that said, "If we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research."
Yeah.
Right? Like, and he's a smart dude.
Yeah.
Yet when he's talking about the powering of an alien spacecraft, I mean, it's fact for him.
Yeah.
That's not.
He was very matter of fact about it.
And that's not him saying, well, in the theory of element 115.
Yeah.
No. He's like,
this is how it works. This is what it was.
Like, this is it.
Yeah.
He's got no skin in the game to fucking lie.
No.
He's been persecuted way too many times. And the government is almost validating what he's saying by persecuting him.
Yeah, exactly.
They're backing it up to a degree, right? So anyway, do we do Conspiracy Month again?
I think so.
Yeah, I think
it's a lot.
It's a lot to unpack, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost make an entire podcast about it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, fucking InfoWars is. Let's face it. You want to hear some pretty preposterous shit, or some shit that's probably pretty real. I mean, I think Alex Jones, for the most part, is probably right. I mean, he has a validated bias to question everything.
Yeah.
It's validated. He has been right. I mean, he was right about the World Trade Center. Not 9/11, but the World Trade Center before, when it was blown up. I mean, the government provocateurs that are ex-SEAL agents and fucking whole bunch of shit. Like he has video footage of it. You know, like he's not wrong all of the time. Just like it's saying, well, just totally disregard Bob Lazar. That seems preposterous to me.
Yeah.
When he's so close to the fact, right? Yeah, I think we have to ask more specific questions.
Yes, I agree.
And take more than a month to put it together and maybe look at it
Yes, this is definitely one to prepare for.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
You know, and I think talking from an elementary state doesn't do anybody good.
I agree.
You know? So yeah, I think we'll try it again probably next year.
Yeah, I would like to. And definitely just, yeah, like me personally, I'll probably start preparing like 3-4 months ahead.
I agree. I mean, I think like this is the first time we've really done the themes. Mm-hmm. So
Trial and error.
Yeah, and I'm not even really convinced that I like them.
Yeah.
Even really, like, just like behind the scenes, I'm not sure if I really am all about it. I would rather a collage of a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And I don't really like it so formalized or formulated, like month to month. This is what we're doing.
Right.
But yeah,
you'd prefer kind of go with the flow, or go wherever.
Whatever happens,
yeah.
man. Like that's the way how I see it. This way we're open to everything and not confined. Mm-hmm. But this is what we picked for this year. So
yeah,
we'll continue on until we revise.
Yeah.
If we revise, maybe by the end of the year, we'll continue this format. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But with that, where can they find you? Instagram, Twitter.
My Instagram is Chelsey with a Y _ Life on Life's Terms. And my Twitter is just first and last name, Chelsey Kapler.
Okay. I think I got Life on Life's Terms podcast on Instagram. And my Twitter account, I'm looking at it right now. My Twitter is some bullshit.
I don't even know it.
It's Justin R. I think you can just do Life on Life's Terms and you'll find it.
Yeah, it'll pop up.
Yeah. So that's that. And then where can you find the after show blog? You can go to www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com. All one word. And the podcast is there. You can also check us out on this wonderful thing called minds.com. All you got to do is punch in Life on Life's Terms and you'll find that on that format. You'll also get us on Facebook. We're on YouTube. You may be listening to us on YouTube right now. Mm-hmm. Hitting that like and subscribe button would be fantastic if you could do that for us. And share and like to all of your friends. That would be even better. You can also talk to us on that website, www.lifeonlifestermspodcast. I think I'm going to try to continue going live every Tuesdays. So if you go to the Let's Chat app, you can talk to me specifically this Tuesday. And we're trying to work in a way for Chelsey to be able to do the same thing on one day of the week.
All right.
Have a wonderful day on this beautiful Thursday.
See you later.
Peace.